everyone. Welcome to Greatness Valley Lifestyle and Prayer Cafe, where faith meets lifestyle. Well, it's 2 years later, and the mighty Pharaoh, who ruled over all of Egypt, had a problem. He had a dream, and no one in the court could interpret his dream or dreams. So, who did they send for? They summoned Joseph from jail to come to the palace to interpret Pharaoh's dream. Isn't it strange that Joseph himself had several dreams and he could not interpret his own dreams? Perhaps that's not the way of providence, to interpret one's own dreams. Nevertheless, it turned out that the dreams that Pharaoh had was a warning. His dream was a warning from God of an upcoming famine. So after Joseph explained the dream and shared the solution, the Pharaoh, what's the pattern that we have with Joseph again? Promotion. He always gets a promotion. It might not last very long, but it happens. The Pharaoh promoted Joseph as prime minister and second in command to execute the plans he shared so that they could secure Egypt as the breadbasket of the day. Think about that. All this time in jail, one interpretation of a dream, he's now a free man. Slave, yes. Prisoner, not anymore. Isn't that interesting? But of course, Joseph's leadership over Egypt had great success. Egypt had more than enough food for themselves and food to sell to other nations in need. It's interesting to note that Joseph was now the boss of Potiphar, who put him in jail. Do you see why you need to let God fight your battles? God is the only one who could have flipped this table so that his enemies became his footstool. So, ask God to take over your case, whatever it may be. Tell him to vindicate you because he has never lost a case. He's the greatest lawyer, the greatest judge. And yes, he's always on your side. So I encourage you to hold on. Do not give up whatever is happening with you today. God is still working out your situation, even if it looks grim. Type "God is able" in the chat. Just type "God is able," because He is. He is able. If you really think about it, things did get from bad to worse. Twice sold as slave, right? And put in jail. So from slavery to jail, yes, it was not looking really good for Joseph, but God. We finally arrive at the moment when the omnipotence of eternity touched down in time for a very special meeting. On the calendar of divine providence, Joseph is on duty as Prime Minister of Egypt. When guess who showed up? His 10 heartless brothers showed up in the middle of this famine to buy food. Joseph recognized them, but they did not know that this prime minister that they're bowing down to, that this same prime minister is the younger brother they sold many years earlier. Eventually, though, Joseph decided to reveal himself to his brothers. Genesis 45, 1 and 2. I'll read that again. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, okay? Those who worked in the court for him and others. And so he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard all about it. Now this is big. Joseph wept loudly, so much that the Egyptians heard him, and the news reached Pharaoh's palace. His tears were not just of lingering pain, but also of profound relief, and a complex reunion is bringing out all of this. This shows us that it's okay to express pain. Crying is not a sign of weakness, but a doorway to healing. Joseph didn't hold back his emotions here. He couldn't. There comes a time when you just cannot. Remember, he was suffering in silence before. There were no outbursts from Joseph. All throughout the story, he allowed himself in this space now to be vulnerable, an essential step in healing when grieving. So there was no outsider. Think about what he said. He asked all the attendants, everyone, to leave. And he was now alone with the brothers. Interesting. I wonder why. Let's find out more. There was no outsider with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. Joseph did not unveil in front of the people who worked for him, or the strangers who saw him as the strong leader of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. They wouldn't understand his wounds anyway, because they know a very compassionate Joseph, the intelligent Joseph, who was a man of excellence, who he does everything very well. He's always willing to help others. He's honest and forthright. So his strength was, you could say, part of his clothing, as it were. He wore strength very well. He was a man that they could trust. So they would have a hard time accepting what was done to their leader, because now they respect and trust him. He's second in command to Pharaoh. So Joseph had protection. Because of his status as prime minister, he had protection from the Egyptian army, who served as his bodyguards and who would not take lightly to anyone causing issues for Joseph. They were trained very well. So if Joseph had lifted his hands for help and broke down in front of these soldiers and bodyguards and all of those who have come to love and respect him, those brothers would be dead, or at the very least, just in jail forever. So what did Joseph do? He cleared the room. He cleared the room not only for his own privacy and for that of his brothers, but for protection. You see, he was handling a family matter. Joseph was not interested in airing his family issues to the entire staff where he worked. That's a lesson for somebody right there. That's a lesson for somebody right there. You have issues with your family, speak to them privately. That might help. Don't try to shame them in front of everybody, because that was very easy for Joseph to do. He could have shamed them right there and caused their very death right there, but he didn't. You see, that text in the Bible that says love covers a multitude of sin. It doesn't say that love is backing you up in your sin, or that love is encouraging you to sin, but it covers. What does that mean? You're not going out of your way to intentionally expose someone else's shortcomings in public. You're interested in the dignity of the family members. He was interested in preserving his brother's dignity when they exposed him half naked to the whole world because they ripped off his tunic when they sold him and covered his tunic in blood and gave it to his dad, telling him that, oh, well, your son is dead. So they sold him half naked. And so they exposed him and robbed him of his dignity. And here it is, he had the opportunity to disgrace them, demean them in front of his entire court. But Joseph cleared the room. That's a lesson for us today. How we handle conflict, how we handle confrontation. Even when we are in the right, Joseph had the right. He was in the right. He was the one that suffered and went to jail and was beaten as a slave. Remember, slaves, don't think that when Potiphar put Joseph in jail, Joseph did not get a beating. You're not accused of crimes like those and just go to jail and have a seat and, polish your nails or something. Well, you know what I mean. You're not going there for a manicure or a pedicure. Hello? So Joseph really had the upper hand on every level. Their very lives. Their very lives. If he had opened his mouth and told the soldiers that they harmed him in such a way that he wants revenge right now, they would be dead. But instead, Joseph cleared the room. I don't want you to miss that. That's very important. Cleared out all the strangers and pulled in the family members to have a face-to-face with them. He had not seen them since he was 17 years old. And now Joseph is about 30-something years old. And no doubt they were much older because he was the younger brother. The youngest of all of them would have been Benjamin, who was at the time left, at home for the first trip to Egypt anyway. So here we find Joseph clearing the room and ripping off the bandage from his wounded heart in the presence of those who wounded him and caused him years of painful atrocities as a slave and as a prisoner. Joseph's tears broke up the inner fountain of his heart where his grief resides. Just like his father cried loudly over his supposed death, because the father was told he was dead, and the father refused to be comforted. See part one. See part one of this series, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. Here we have Joseph did not want to be consoled. He couldn't keep it in. He had to let it out. He could not be consoled by the guards, by the people in Egypt. At this time, he had a wife and 2 sons. If you read the story in its completion in Genesis. So he was an adult. So what does that tell any of us? That what happened to you as a teenager can be trapped and locked up inside of your heart and follow you right into your older age as an adult. It doesn't go away. And so here it is now. Joseph has to deal with that part right there. His grief came out in raw form from a heart filled with pain, while at the same time he was showing mercy to the perpetrators, to the ones who harmed him. Joseph had love in his heart for his brothers before they sold him. He had a lot of love for his brothers. And that love evidently is still there, buried in grief. The love is surrounded by grief and pain, but the love is there, nevertheless. So, question, is your love sandwiched between grief and pain right now? Because you know the person who hurt you when you were a child and the trauma you experienced, and it might be following you right now. Well, it's still with you right now, and you're hurting, and it's ripping you to shreds. But you still love the person who harmed you, especially if it's a family member that you did not hate in any type of a way. Think about that. Think about that for a moment. Is your love sandwiched between grief and pain, even anger? Are you angry at that person or persons who hurt you? Let it out. Not in rage, but let it out. Let's dig a little deeper. Find out what happens next in part 1.9. Through guided lessons, practical exercises, and supportive resources, you'll learn how to process your emotions, let go of the past, and rise stronger than ever before. No matter how deep the hurt, there's always a way to heal. Join me on this journey of transformation, and together we can turn your pain into power. Sign up today. GreatnessValleyLifestyle.com has the resources you need for a brighter tomorrow. The healing journey begins with you. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more tips and inspiration on your path to healing. We want to thank our wonderful sponsor, Lily Love Notebooks. That's LILYLUV Notebooks. And this is for our prayer journal. Thank you so very much. We have these wonderful prayer journals that are absolutely amazing, prompted, and filled with just lots and lots of pages for daily intercessory prayer for churches, families, those who are sick, reflection notes, answers to prayers, and so much more. This prayer journal is what we're using in all of our series. And so we want to thank Lily Love, and you can find this wonderful prayer journal at Amazon.com. You can find the link in the description. Once again, thank you so very much for sharing this wonderful prayer journal with us. We want to remind you that we have resources to help you navigate through grief. We have a practical guide, How to Step Out of Grief and Bloom. This is for anyone and everyone, whether you're grieving or not. It will prepare you for that time or to help someone who is. This is packed with stories of those who went through grief, the various stages in grief, biblical text that helps you to navigate in terms of God's divine providence and how He sees you and the fact that He is with you. So it really helps you in the day-to-day moments to understand what's happening to you or what is going to happen to you, so you can be proactive and understand it even before it happens. And we also have the grief journal, How to Step Out of Grief and Bloom, same name or title as the practical guide. And this is a prompted journal. That means it has all the prompts. It tells you what to do. It asks the questions. It reminds you of all the different activities that you can do, and it gives you examples. It gives you pages so that you can write. It gives you different activities. You can write letters and all of the different things that you need to do to help you as you walk through grief. I assure you, you will not regret having these resources. Check them out on Amazon.com, and the link will also be in the description of this video. Have a wonderful day.